Hi, my name is Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to pick up on concerns from British manufacturers. Very, very important for an awful lot of jobs that are threatened by Brexit. In terms of how the UK government intends to replace the EU CE standard scheme in 2021. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So hopefully we're all familiar with the CE mark for standards. It's the stamp which all products that are sold in the EU single market have to show to demonstrate that they've met all the necessary standards on health, safety and environmental protections. Now, of course, if we're going to manufacture anything for the single market, then we will still have to apply it to those products as well. That's fine, that's understood, and we understand the system for that. But in terms of selling products in the UK, and this matters not just for manufacturers in the UK, but it matters for manufacturers outside of the UK as well who will want to sell things in the UK market. They need to know what our version is going to be so that they can set up the systems needed to apply it. So the UK scheme is to adopt a UKCA stamp, which is standards for United Kingdom Conformity Assessed, and simply means that the product meets whatever is left of our standards once the government starts throwing the ones we have now onto the bonfire after the transition period ends. Now, products will need this stamp to be sold in the UK, in the same way that products need to be marked CE to be sold anywhere in the EU single market. Good, all sounds straightforward. So, what do manufacturers have to do to be able to get up to speed with this new system so that they can have a smooth transition in January? Good question. Sadly, the government do not yet have the answer. And because the system has not yet been set up, there are those in the manufacturing industry who've said it is now essentially too late to be up and running properly for January now. So, for example, Honda, one of the few car manufacturers that has not necessarily said it's definitely leaving yet, as far as I can remember, it's very difficult to keep up, has said that, without the new system, component supplies to the UK factories could be interrupted. And obviously, if they can't ship those components to the factory, I'm sure I don't really need to point out that manufacturing completed vehicles is going to be a little bit tricky. Because the situation is that many of the parts produced for the Honda factory are produced in Japan. So they're shipped over. Well, at the moment, it's fine. They're CE certified. That's not going to be good enough. It needs to be UKCA certified. What is UKCA? Don't know. Ask the government. They don't know. So what they said, Honda, and I quote, "The remaining time in 2020 is simply too short to design, test, and guarantee compliance with whatever the new UK requirements will be before the end of the year." Because it is important to note that anyone producing anything for a market that has to go through a process of verifying that it meets those standards has to have a system set up to do that. You can't do that overnight. It's not even just purely a paperwork exercise either, like they say there. They have to be able to design systems for testing and to carry that out as well. So you would think just keep using the CE mark then and accept that in the UK market we can do that. After all, we're not exactly going to be increasing our standards above that of the EU, are we? Behave yourself if you think so. So a CE certified product will definitely be acceptable here under this government. And that was indeed the plan that was implemented by Theresa May. Unfortunately, and for reasons that I can't be certain about, and I've got a sneaking suspicion, this plan was cancelled by Boris Johnson's government at the start of this year. Now, I would speculate that the reason for this is the same reason that we're pulling out of lots of EU systems, such as, for example, the COVID vaccine programme. Apparently, anything to do with EU is haram, and we are to have no part of it whatsoever. Now, it could be that faced with another self-inflicted blow to our manufacturing industry, that the government relent and go back to Plan A. After all, their Plan B envelope essentially has a note in it saying, "I owe you one Plan B." And that is certainly what UK manufacturers want, and indeed any manufacturer that wants to sell in the UK want the government to do. It would make perfect sense and it would work. And the only argument against it, as far as I can tell, is a sad panda saying, but Brexit. I mean, at the moment, you'd think the new stamp will be exactly the same as the CE stamp anyway, because after all, our standards aren't going to drop overnight. They are the EU standards at the moment, and they will be on the 1st of January 2021. Government ministers keep boasting about how our standards are amongst the highest in the world. Yeah, that's because we have to adopt EU standards. What happens after that point? It'll take at least a couple of weeks for us to drop our standards. And a manufacturing chief executive based in the UK, Andrew Varga, said, and I quote, "I fail to see the point of a UK mark. If it's weaker, it will damage the UK's reputation. If it's tougher, that's pointless since CE is a global gold standard. And if it's the same, but with a UK badge on it, then it's a nugatory effect." Now, I mean, that's a decent point, because when it is finally realised, and goodness knows when that will be, but if it's already operationally too late, then it will inevitably be compared to the CE standard. And you just think to yourself, so at this point, how will that play out into the public then? Because when it comes out, there's going to be a comparison. That's immediately going to happen. So Boris Johnson has insisted that we will not be lowering our standards. But this UK CA stamp will provide an easy way to assess that claim, particularly with an eye on to the US trade deal. It will be immediately compared with CE. And if it turns out that UKCA is lower, it will be pointed out. It was also an interesting point about CE being the global gold standard, because in relation to the US trade deal, I'd also seen captains of industry in America, American manufacturers, saying the same thing when they were discussing the lack of progress made by the UK in securing an EU deal. They were essentially saying, look, you need to get a deal with the EU, mate. So to my mind, I would think the likelihood is that it will stay exactly the same, because it's not going to be made tougher. That's all there is to it. There is no point, like Varga was saying, because the EU standard is the gold standard. He can't afford for it to be compared and shown to be lower, you would think, which means only one thing possible, exactly the same, which of course will be pointless and will be ridiculed and will cost businesses more money to deal with. But Brexit is nothing else if not just a way to cross out references to the EU and replace it with UK. That is the Brexit mindset. Now, finally, the article also obtained a quote from the government which went, "The UK has proposed mutual recognition of conformity assessment, which would facilitate trade in UKCA and CE marked goods. This is subject to ongoing negotiation and we will provide further details in due course." Now, that is an interesting statement and obscured in the sort of language that would make Sir Humphrey Appleby proud. So let's pick it apart. Mutual recognition. That means it does exactly the same thing with a different name. In other words, there is 0 point in it. It is just aping the EU standard, but having our own stamp. Literally like putting a UK sticker across the EU version. That's all it'll be. Then this quote says, "This is subject to ongoing negotiation." Really? Why would we negotiate with the EU, or indeed anyone else, about our manufacturing standards? Because this isn't about coming to an agreement on standards for us to be able to export. This is entirely about import. This is about the UK market, over which, because we are no longer members of the EU, outside of the transition period, our government sets those itself, doesn't have to confer with anyone. We set those standards ourselves. I wonder how many Brexit supporters know that we are negotiating to come to an agreement on manufacturing standards that we now have the right to set for ourselves unilaterally, based on whatever our government chooses, without having to defer to anyone else. What exactly are they negotiating? If we just want to copy CE standards and produce a copy-paste version and call it UKCA, we can easily do that. We don't even need the EU's permission. We just go onto their website. Every time they change a standard, we just copy that standard across for ourselves. No problem. What exactly were you negotiating for? What happened to take back control? Are the government seriously suggesting that we cannot decide what our own standards should be because, well, the government have just said that they're negotiating them with organisations outside of the UK? Interesting, that. But anyway, there it is. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.